Hey, Doug.
Yes, I'm here.
I am too. Can you see me?
No, I cannot.
Hey, Doug.
Yes, I'm here.
No, there's
I
some,
am too. Can you see me? No, I cannot.
there's something with the double. When I click on it, it like doubly does the background. And so the first time I say it, then you hear it a second time. It's
Second
kind of
time. Yeah.
so just hang on 1 second. Just give me
Okay.
2 seconds. It's just weird. I've never had this happen before. But it's because we're doing such great stuff. It's called spiritual warfare. No, I'm dead serious. It's like when we're doing great things, like everything becomes a little bit more difficult. But
Hey, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. The Murphy's Law.
so this is what's popping up. This meeting is being live streamed. Obviously, we know that because we pushed the button. By staying in this meeting, you can't consent to being live streamed. Okay, so I'm just going to say, got it. That's okay. We know we're being live streamed, right? We're
Yes.
here. All right. Okay, we're working. All right. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
You're back. All right. Now I can see you. It's great.
It's just Zoom changing their stuff. All right. So let's just get to the point. I'm so excited to see you because I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks because you've been on the road speaking and all over the place and announcing all of the games. So tell us just a little bit about it because it's so cool to be able to announce games.
Yeah, it really is. You get a lot of chance during the week watching television, listening on the radio, driving in your car. And I always try to, I don't want to say gauge or evaluate broadcasters, but it's like what you do, Megan. I mean, you were in an industry, in a business. Sometimes you're always looking at someone else and comparing yourself to them or grading them on the job that they're doing. Gosh, that was a great comment. Or no, I would have never said that. So when I'm watching games, I look at the action and I think about what I would say, and then I hear what they would say. Sometimes it's very close. Other times it's completely, on different directions. But especially some of those broadcasters or former players, an lineman has a different look at a game than I would, being a defensive back. Same thing with quarterbacks, running backs. So you have to think, put yourself in their shoes. And they're basically just evaluating the game based on what they knew as a former player at a particular position. But it's fun being on the air. Sometimes you just forget, and sometimes that's dangerous because you'll say or do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do in front of a million people. And
Totally. Absolutely.
You're always trying to choose your words. I'm not a big profanity guy. I even if I get really, really mad, I might say shoot or something like that. That's the worst of it. And but other people sometimes they get in trouble because they maybe use a lot of profanity during the week. And when you're doing a broadcast, there's moments during the game, Megan, where you just lose it. You either like one team or you don't like them. But you have this emotion. So you're watching this and you're trying to be objective. But sometimes it's hard. If the Chicago Bears are playing, obviously that's a team I played for before. I know their head coach. He was a quarterback for me in arena football when I coached in arena football. So I have a strong association with the Chicago Bears. On the other hand, there's a whole bunch of people that I know, coaches and other players on other teams. And I found this out. And it may not be the case for every single fan in America. I find myself now rooting for individuals that I know that I have a relationship with rather than the team, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I got you. I understand 100%. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about something very similar to that I haven't talked to you about, but I'll talk to you about it later. But it's exactly what you're just saying. It's being a fan of the athlete.
It's almost like, and they're allowed to gamble now on professional football. That's a public, not a private anymore or illegal. As you noticed, all the advertisements recently for all the companies that will take your bet on a game, who's going to win by how many points, how many turnovers they're going to have, how many touchdowns the quarterback going to throw, all those sort of things. So it's a lot more easy to talk about it now, where before you couldn't even talk about it. You couldn't even talk about it as a player because nobody watching a game wants to think money might have an impact. But you know what? Money has an impact on everything we do. I mean, the better players get paid more money than the less talented player.
Do you know who's going to sponsor the Professional Athlete Soaring Summit?
No,
and you're probably familiar, but they just called me out of the blue. Superdrafted.com. I was just looking it up.
Yeah, you know that's.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, well, I've heard of them many times. You know, and even like what used to be sacred, like no, you can't touch these guys, you can't talk to them. The people that are in college, those are like, oh, those are all amateurs. You know, they don't get money for anything. Well, you know, over the years, who knows? I mean, there's been a lot of rumored, you know, that some of these players in college, athletes, got paid money to either go to the school and their performance, how many points they scored in a game, like a basketball game or a football, how many touchdowns in football. You know,
I just always want to believe none of that's true.
And I'm the same way.
I like you and I talk all the time, and people don't know this, but you and I talk all the time. And like we were talking about earlier today, I don't want to believe that stuff is true. I want to believe everybody is good, but
Yep.
but you know, we see a lot of things. And again, I'm not the ultimate judge. You know, I believe God's the judge. But anyway, that's different. But the point is that I just don't want to believe it, but I believe it because I know you and I believe everything you say.
Well, you know, especially in college right now, I mean, where you were not allowed to have any opportunity to make any money off your likeness or how you played. Now it's wide open. And I think as we go through these next couple of years, it's going to get more and more wide open. The better players in college will have fur coats on, you know, doing, I don't know, cereal commercials or some bubblegum commercial, or they're driving cars that I already know car dealers in college cities that have college football players calling them up, seeing if they could get cars to drive, you know, for an advertisement or a commercial, to go out to their dealership and sign autographs for 2 hours to get a car to drive, you know, forever. I mean, or, you know, during their time when they're in college. It's just amazing how fast it's just, you know, changed. And you know, they made it like, oh, if you're accepting money for anything, you're a really bad guy. You're a bad person. Now it's like, hey, everybody, it's great. It's wonderful.
I was just going to say, during your time, that was the case. Now,
not now.
It's free open.
Yeah, it's wide open. It's
called social media.
You know, I think too, you know, you just look at some circumstances and situations in this country. Look at some of the companies that are sponsoring or supporting some universities, you know, and there's companies all over the country that have a great affiliation with a local college. You know, it may have a basketball team or a football team or a baseball or track or wrestling. It doesn't matter what it is, but you think about what impact those companies could have on bringing players to that university. I'm not talking about just inside the state, all over the country. You know, there's some obvious ones out there. Anybody that's watched college football can think of 2 or 3 right now, huge companies that are tied to the university immediately in their area. And if they decided that they were going to start forwarding money into the athletic department, specifically football, baseball, or basketball, the really revenue generating sports, it's amazing how they could go from being a good team to a great team, because now they're offering compensation. If you come to this school, we're already going to make you a pro player because we're going to start paying you. You're going to start getting paychecks every week or every other week or every game. And I just think it could radically change the dynamics in college sports.
I agree with you 100%. Okay, so before I got to ask you 2 things before we go. And this is kind of, so just, I got to send it out there for everybody, because everybody who knows and listens to Doug and I knows that we're friends, we talk. So I gave Doug a heads up, and I told him one of the things I would love to do is ask you a question from me personally that you don't know, like you're not going to know about the question. I'm just going to ask it to you. And then we also have the question from our viewers and listeners, which is always kind of fun. And today's question from the viewers and listeners is actually really cool. My question probably is a little bit more boring, but so my question, okay, so we're going to always do this every week. We're going to do one question from Megan, because I'm nosy. I'm a reporter. No, seriously, I'm nosy and I'm a reporter by heart, and I love the news. And then, so the second one is from one of our listeners or viewers. So my question to you is, because I'm a big goal person. So if you have 5 years, or what is not even that, what is your 5 favorite things on your bucket list that you want to achieve before you're dead?
You know what? I think most of those are outside.
And just for the record, he doesn't know what I'm going to ask him. So I always love, because Doug always has an answer.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I think most of those questions are, let's say, you grow up in a specific little town, and I happen to be born and raised just outside in a Pittsburgh suburb. And my father worked in a factory basically his whole life. And I just knew something, there was nothing wrong with that job. It was but I wanted to do something that would take me outside of my normal life that I knew it as a young person, junior high, high school, the opportunity to move to other areas of the country. Because you know what? Hey, no matter who we are, we all can turn the television on and say that is happening somewhere in our country right now. Some movie, some event, some athletic event, some relationship, some story or something. And you're thinking, who wouldn't want to try to go to California? When you're growing up in a 33,500 person town in Pennsylvania, coal mining, all that sort of thing. When those movies came on, like in California, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the mountains in the ocean. I want to go there. And so to me, I think, I've gone to Europe and I've traveled in Europe, but I think one thing I would really want to do is travel around the world. And I would love to see Australia, even spend some time in like Russia and China. Not that I would ever think I wanted to live there. Just to see, we hear about Russia, China all the time. Wouldn't it be great if you could literally just go to one of their major cities and actually have a conversation with some people living there and see whether they liked it, they didn't like it? Was there traffic? Is there cars? Everything we have right now, it's given to us by somebody else, mostly the news stations, and they just show some little clip of China or Russia or whatever. I just think that would be really an experience. And on top of that, another thing that would not, just because you hear about it all the time on the news, I think going to like some places like Australia, New Zealand, wow, that would be incredible. And growing up watching the National Geographic, not to give them a plug, but going up to like Antarctica and Antarctica, I'm serious. I think that.
Well, you want to try. So you're saying travel.
Yes,
you want to travel. And I agree. So let me just tell you, and I'm going to give a shout out, because I have 2 really good friends in New Zealand. One like grew up in the area. The other one was working in television with me, and she decided to become a psychologist, and she moved her whole family from Minnesota to New Zealand. And I will tell you, the world is huge. And that would be my answer too, is that I want to travel, because the cultures and the different places you can go to are extremely amazing. And my friend that moved to New Zealand that I was in television with, she's raised all of her family there. She has an amazing, successful practice. And it's incredible.
I think, another thing, you have to understand when you say bucket list, in what terminology. Is that when you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old?
No, for you, now that you're 50.
Well, oh yeah. If I know I'm down to my last year, then my whole bucket list changes. Because you know what? The travel is still important, but I love those things where those guys jump off cliffs and they have those wings and things, and they fly through the air. Even if you were a crash and a burn at the end of it, and someone had said, Doug, you only have 30 days to live, your bucket list changes radically. How about jumping out an airplane?
All right, well, you're not, listen, my question to you is not, you're not going anywhere, Doug. My question was just, what are 5 things you want to do? Stop projecting that in the universe.
I would like to jump out of an airplane with nothing, just me. And I think
that's not healthy. That's
obviously
not healthy.
That's going to be a short memory because I can only memorize it until I hit the ground. But I think that would be such a rush, that wind just going through your face.
So as long as you have a parachute, I'll let you do that. If you don't have a parachute, you're not doing that.
Right.
Sorry.
I think that would be so exciting. And it's some of the things that in our life that give us the most thrill, almost give us the most terror also. Like, if you're in an airplane or something and you're thinking, okay, the engine stopped working, and now all of a sudden you're diving towards the ground going 500 miles an hour. That's a memory you'll remember at least until you hit the ground. And I don't know, I just think I love living life on the edge. I've rolled plenty.
I was just gonna say, you're an edge. I can't imagine anybody but you. I'm sure there's somebody that I don't know, but who would want to say they'd like to jump out of an airplane without a parachute? Like, that's just insane, because you're not going to live. So I know. The point is,
I'm thinking bucket list is like your last.
No. Bucket lists are things that you would like to do before you move on to,
There's no moving on these things. You know why? Because they give you fear. But you know what, man? If you ever realized you were alive and you'd be doing something like that, you know what? Because your brain is just going through so many different functions. It's like running down the field on a kickoff. Back in the 70s or 80s, we played against USC in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State did, and so I had a chance to be on 3 of those teams. But to run down the field and play against USC all 3 years, and I was on the kickoff team. And I'll never forget how big those guys were, like, 6'6" and 300 pounds, run full speed into something like that. Now you could say, well, who would want to do that? I would. I wanted to do it because I wanted to see what it felt like. And there was really no feeling to it, because a couple of times I just got knocked out. The next thing I woke up, I was on the sidelines. I, had gotten knocked out, hit helmets with another player. But it was such a rush, because even when you're running down the field, Megan, you hear 100,000 people cheering for you. It's amazing. Oh, it's like a rush. I can't explain it. It's like electricity going through your body. And yes, you realize there's going to be a collision at the end of it. You're not going to die though. I mean, you might break some bones, but the whole thrill of it was amazing. I'm serious. It just. I can talk about it now like it was 40 years ago, but I remember it like it was this morning, and my thoughts and my fears. And I think that's one thing. If we had a better control of our survival instinct, I think we would all enjoy life a lot more, because I know some people that are really, really scared of doing anything, not putting their seatbelt on every time, always being very, very safe and slow and cautious and go under the speed limit. And I don't know, to me, I think that's what life is all about, pushing it right to the edge, and sometimes you fall off the edge, hopefully you got a parachute on or something, that you're not going to die from it. But my biggest thrills in life usually have ended with a crash, but it was up until the crash, it was a great memory.
I love that. All right. Okay. So I always say I like to keep these podcasts to like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so that people can listen like quickly. And so let's go back together and we're going to answer the question on the next podcast, because I just want to always keep everything to like 20, unless you want to do it right now, whatever you prefer.
No, I think that's a great idea. I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, I always think of when I listen to a podcast, I listen to like 15 minutes and I move on. So,
Yes, of course. You're right.
all right. Okay. So, Doug, I'm going to see you in like 5-10 minutes. And then just make sure everybody and go to snspodcast.com or check us out here. And thank you for listening to us. Please email me your questions at megazee.com, or you can contact Doug. I mean, I put out all of his information too. And whoever answers first, we're here, but please ask us questions. We love to answer your questions. And I can't wait to tell Doug the question I got today. So just listen, because we're going to go back, and I'm just trying to be respectful of your time. That's it. So thanks for listening to us. And Doug, I will see you in just a few minutes.
Absolutely. Love it. See you soon.
See you in a few minutes.